Remember a few seasons back when the Oklahoma City Thunder had Kevin Durant, back when everybody liked Kevin Durant, and Russell Westbrook and James Harden and Serge Ibaka, and everybody's like, this is a damn good young team with a lot of potential, and we know that they're going to be a big deal in the NBA. And in a matter of one season, the OKC Thunder, in 2009, they won 23 games. In 2010, they won 50. That must be the biggest jump in like the history of the NBA for one team, besides like the Celtics when they acquired the Big Three. Are the Minnesota Timberwolves ready to make that sort of a jump this season? If we look at their top three guys, it does kind of resemble the OKC team just in terms of how much potential we think they have. I mean, of course, Karl Anthony Towns, his ceiling is the best player in the league, and I think he could insert himself into being a top 15, perhaps even a top 10 player this season because he can shoot from everywhere as a center, he can post up down low, he has the Tim Duncan ability of being in the right place at the right time, able to get in tip-ins, and he's also a damn good rebounder at 11 per game, and while his defense is not up with his offensive standards just yet, he's a pretty nice defensive player too. Then we look at Andrew Wiggins, who's as athletic as all hell, and while he does still need to work on his three-point shot and his mid-range a bit, his ability to attack the rim is just so good. Wiggins, he's very comfortable going inside even though he has a thin frame. He also has a really good spin move, which often draws contact that we don't see from guys this young. He also has a really decent post-up game too. So Wiggins, he's not afraid of drawing contact, getting inside, and he is good at getting to the line and being very valuable for your team attacking the rim. But he does still need to work on that outside shot. Also, I'm waiting on his rebounding to really take off. I feel like with how athletic he is, he should really be grabbing like 6 or 7 boards a game, but I'm sure he'll get there. And then, of course, Zach LaVine, who was always known as an athlete, but this season he really took off with his shooting. 45% from the field, 39% from three. And LaVine, like Wiggins, he can fly up and down the floor as well. But, of course, his outside shot is way more polished than Wiggins is right now. And LaVine, his ability to shoot off the dribble is very good. If he's in a pick and roll, you can't just back up off of him because he's very comfortable with taking a step back three or taking an off-balance three. I mean, he hit some huge shots for the T-Wolves this year. Of course, there was the game against Washington that went into double overtime. He hit like the biggest three-pointer of the game over Marcin Gortat. So LaVine as well as Wiggins are damn good at driving inside, which is going to make it almost impossible to defend these guys. And then Karl Anthony Towns doing what he can do. The question is, we all assume that these guys are going to be a top team in the NBA. Is it going to happen this following season? Or maybe not a top team, but a definite playoff team in the West. Of course, Tom Thibodeau is the head coach, and I think the combination of Tom Thibodeau as well as Karl Anthony Towns, it's probably going to result in Towns being one of the best defensive players in the NBA. Hopefully it also gets Wiggins' defense there too, because Wiggins' defense has been a little disappointing since he entered the league. It's still been good, but his consistency and his awareness on defense have been his problem, because from a physical standpoint, with how athletic and long he is, he definitely has the tools, and one-on-one defense, he's pretty decent, but when it comes to help defense and things like that, sometimes he falls asleep. But I think Thibodeau can clean that up beautifully for Wiggins. So the top three guys are great, but if they're really going to make a jump, we got to look at the rest of the roster here. The point guard situation, they've drafted Chris Dunn. He seems like a beast, but they already have Ricky Rubio, who, I mean, I'm a decent fan of Rubio's, I guess. He's a fantastic playmaker, but he's so hesitant when it comes to scoring, and he's not really a threat to put up a lot of points against you, so it makes it pretty easy to defend his passes. Perhaps Chris Dunn will be more of a willing scorer. The question is Dunn going to be able to give you the opportunity to trade away Ricky Rubio in only his rookie season? Because even if Chris Dunn's really good, it might take him a couple years. And as of right now, the T-Wolves are definitely better when Rubio is in the game. But given that Chris Dunn may be more of a scorer, he might be the better long-term option, but I think for this very season, I think Rubio is going to be getting the majority of the minutes, unless Chris Dunn just comes out like wildfire and it's obvious right away that he's the better player, then they can trade away Rubio for something, I don't know. The center position, or the power forward position I should say, Gorgui Dieng, he's an interesting big man. I think he's another guy who could really grow from Thibodeau, because I think he has potential as a defensive player as well, but he too can be a bit inconsistent like Wiggins sometimes. And you could say to yourself, well, these guys aren't going to turn it around this quickly just because of Thibodeau. I mean, the Chicago Bulls went from 41 wins. They signed Thibodeau and they immediately win 62. He makes that sort of an impact for you, especially on the defensive side of the floor. And I do like the starting five. I think Rubio, or if Chris Dunn really takes off, Levine, Wiggins, Towns, Gorgui Dieng. I forgot to mention Dieng. He can be kind of like a Brandon Bass sort of role player for them. He's really good from mid-range. He's a nice player to fit into the system of what they're going for. So I like the starting lineup a lot. And if we look at the second unit, gotta assume Chris Dunn is the backup point guard unless he, again, really takes off and they decide they don't want Rubio anymore. Next, there's Shabazz Muhammad, who is a very interesting player who seems like he can be a scorer off the bench for you. He has put up 14 points per game on a nice efficiency and good three-point rating in the NBA. His second season, although he didn't play too much, he played like half the season. It was probably because of an injury or something. Shabazz is real interesting because he's shown the ability to hit from outside, although his three-point shot fell off a cliff this season. He is a physically imposing player who can go at you, put a shoulder into you, and finish at the rim. And I think that's his calling in the NBA, being a scorer off the bench, because for his career, he is averaging less than 1 assist per game. So I'm not going to expect this guy to be a playmaker. And I'm going to be honest, Shabazz, he might get dropped from Thibodeau because he is shown to not be the best defensive player, and he can be a little bit of a ball hog sometimes. And Thibodeau is a bit stubborn, so I think we could see Shabazz become a real scorer for the T-Wolves off the bench, or he might be out of the rotation by like Christmas. I think it could go either way. And given that it's Thibodeau, I'm leaning towards Shabazz not being on this team. But he has a lot of talent and a decent amount of potential. Maybe Thibodeau can get him going in the right direction. I also like Jordan Hill coming off the bench, a big man who can help out Karl Anthony Towns and Gorgui Dieng when it comes to rebounding and just size. They also have Cole Aldrich who can do similar things. I like the team overall. I guess the questions could be, how good is Chris Dunn this early on? And is there enough scoring off the second unit? Which those two kind of go hand in hand. But besides that, I think there's a real chance the T-Wolves jump up to like 40-something wins this year and comfortably get like the 6th or 7th seed in the Western Conference because, like I said, Karl Anthony Towns, he could become a top 10 player this year. I think top 20 is guaranteed if he's not already a top 20 player. I look for Wiggins to be more consistent on defense. Levine just getting a year better. He's pretty damn efficient from everywhere, but Levine just getting a season better will be good. And I think the guys around him are good enough to where this team can make a real jump in just one season. And then in 3 years, they're going to win 75 games because they're that freaking good. So that's going to do it. Shout out to the T-Wolves, and I'm done.